Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I gotta do my first impressions on this bad boy. This was actually loaned to me by my buddy Joe, the Knife Whisperer, who will be linked down below. This is his Gavko, CKF Gavko Tiger. And yeah, it's a pretty interesting knife to say the least. So I've actually had this in my possession for a little while now. I unboxed it probably about a week ago, but I haven't let myself carry it for more than like an hour until today. Today I carried it the whole day, and I've just kind of finally had this space in terms of finishing up some other reviews to give this the start that it deserves. So I want to share first impressions on it after carrying it today. Haven't really done hardly any cutting with it. I did open a package today and I cut open one envelope, but that's not a ton. That said, this is a gorgeous, very limited knife, and so I'm not going to be doing a ton of cutting with it anyway. But I'll do a little bit more than I have done by the time that I do the full review. So this knife is a collaboration between CKF, Custom Knife Factory, and Gavko. And the model is the Tiger. All of the Gavko knives that I'm familiar with are all named after sharks. So this is kind of like the tiger shark, if you will. There's the Nurse and the Great White, and is there a bull? Probably not. That would be a funny name though. Anyway, I actually haven't owned any Gavko knives. I haven't even owned any Gavko designed knives, which is crazy because I've always been really drawn to his designs. I think they look really cool. I've heard so many good things about both his customs and the production knives that he's done before, so it's a little weird that I haven't given one a shot yet, but that's made me pretty excited to give this one a try. So I'll just kind of share where I'm at with it starting out, and then I'll save a lot of the more in-depth stuff for the full review when I've had more experience with it. But first, let's just kind of go through what this knife is made of. So we've got a blade of M390. You can see we have a pretty impressive grind here. This is a flat grind, not a hollow grind, but it gets a really good edge profile. I'm pretty pleased with that. Crazy swedge. So we have a kind of belt satin for this primary grind. The swedge is actually like what seems to me to be a hand satin, which is kind of crazy. The lines, let's see if I can get the lighting right. The lines on it actually go this way, whereas on this edge bevel they go vertical, and then as you can see, the flats are like this really cool kind of dark stone washed color. So the blade has a lot of contrast, and it's a very angular tanto, and it's just a lot going on there. So blade steel M390. It's a titanium frame lock, so both sides of this knife are in titanium. We do have an insert with an over travel stop and a hardened steel interface, and then a titanium clip. This version, I forget where Joe said he got it. He got it from a specific retailer, I think, and so this one was anodized this way when he got it. So they aren't always purple and blue. Personally, I would never pick this color combination. I don't think it's like the most hideous thing ever. I don't hate the knife because it's this color. But if this one was mine and I had to get it in this color, I would strip this ano off immediately because I'm not into purple things in general. Although my daughter likes that it's purple, so there's that. But yeah, so we've just got a pretty simple titanium frame lock construction. It's a titanium clip, titanium scales, M390 blade, very simple, no backspacer, it's just barrel spacers, and no internal milling. Very, very simple construction. I do think the hardware looks pretty cool. This pivot hardware has this, I don't know, it's just designed in a way that I think looks nice. Sometimes, I don't know, it can be a risky game doing kind of a designed pivot screw where it's got aesthetic elements to it, because sometimes it looks a little weird, but this one I like. It looks good. So yeah, that's what we're working with materials-wise. Again, I'll reiterate, very simple in terms of how knives are put together, without the internal milling, without it being an integral or anything like that. A lot of the CKFs that I've been experiencing lately have just seemed a little more intensely built than this maybe, and I don't know. I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing. This one's just simple. Like my Satori 2.0, which I just traded, was an integral and just seemed a little bit more wild in terms of how it was constructed, mostly because it was an integral. And then I've got the 523 on loan right now, and that thing has zirconium all over it and crazy carbon fiber, and it's a liner lock, but everything is like titanium, and it just feels crazy, right? And then now I've got the Evo 2.0, and that one's probably the most similar to this one in construction, but it does have a pretty intense internal milling, and the finish on the scales has some texture to it. And so this one just seems, I don't want to be unfair to it and say vanilla, because I actually kind of like how simple it is, but it does seem more simple than the other CKFs that I've experienced so far. So, is what it is. What's definitely not simple or vanilla, however, is like the profile and the lines and the design itself of this knife. This is a pretty wild knife. You look at that blade, it's just pretty crazy. So, yeah, I haven't done much cutting with it yet, but what I like so far about the blade is how much of a ridiculously pokey, stabby tip you get on this guy. It is just a menacing tip. And because it's got this Tanto kind of profile, you do have a little bit of a kind of secondary tip here that you can draw through things if you're cutting through tape or something. And I think functionally this blade shape, it's not going to be, it's not designed for crazy hard use, I don't think, because that tip does get pretty thin out there. So I'd be worried about doing like real hard use penetrating tasks. That's what she said. Not that someone would do that with this knife, but it seems more like it's designed for EDC stuff. And then maybe even because of how stabby it is and that profile, I guess you could make an argument this would be a good self-defense knife. I don't know. So yeah, the blade is just kind of wicked, especially when you pair that up with the way that the swedge kind of has these like double harpoons, if you want to call it that. It's got 2 points, and it just looks wild. I think it's eye-catching. I don't think these points up here really serve a purpose other than ergonomically. It kind of breaks up the spine for thumb placement, so I do kind of like that. But I don't know if it would be more comfortable or less comfortable without this bump here. I think this one up here is where you'd kind of more typically see like a harpoon point, if you will. I don't know, just kind of interesting. So the blade is definitely the shining element of this knife that makes it stand out. It's just a crazy looking blade. But I'm finding so far that I'm really digging the ergos as well. This knife works for me in a variety of grips and orientations. It just feels nice. I like that there's no jimping anywhere, even on the flipper tab, just no jimping whatsoever on this knife. I do appreciate that. The flipper tab is a little bit of a pickaxe here. It's definitely a kind of larger flipper tab, and it sticks out quite a bit. Plus the knife does get really fat down at the bottom anyways. It kind of swells down that way, so it does feel pretty big here in pocket, but it's comfortable so far. I carried it today in jeans, and it was like, it didn't bother me one bit. I had my wallet in my pocket next to it. I did pull my wallet out of my pocket once or twice, and like no problems. I do like, if a knife is going to be kind of fat and in one spot in pocket, it's better for it to be the spot that's all the way down in your pocket, because when the knife is narrow up here, it makes reaching in past it very easy to get into the pocket for the other stuff you've got in there. So I like that. I don't know, I'm digging this knife so far. I think mentally I would like it a lot more if it wasn't purple and blue. Personally, I'm sure to some people this is like super duper extra cool because it's purple and blue, but for me it's just I don't know. If it was all the blue color, I'd probably like that. The purple is really what throws me, but the fact that it's purple and then the blue is thrown onto it as well, it's just not my style. But functionally and in hand, and if I'm blindfolded, it feels very good. So far it's cut well, and it's impressed me. So this is just my first impressions. I don't think I really need to go much deeper in than that, but when it comes time for the full review, we'll talk ergos, action, carry, cutting. The action so far, by the way, is pretty awesome. I'm finding CKF in general on their frame locks has relatively weak detents. They're not so weak that it's like always super easy to shake the knife out or anything, but it's just I would like a more firm detent, personally. That said, the way that it drops is crazy. And I think if this knife had a hole for deployment, like some Gavkos do, it would be really good. The detent, that is. Like on my Evo 2.0, the detent is phenomenal. It's probably about the same as this. The difference is I'm not trying to use a flipper tab for it. This one, it feels better if I push button it than if I try to light switch it, because it just feels really light when I light switch it, but it is what it is. Anyway, I think that's a pretty decent stamp on where I'm at so far with this knife, day one of carrying it. So thanks guys for watching, and there will be a full review soon. Thanks again to Joe, the Knife Whisperer. Again, he'll be linked down below. Very funny dude with a very different YouTube channel, and he reviews some great knives, and he's good at it, and he has a good time. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you on the next one.